Hey there, and welcome to Work Dope, a podcast on the messiness and the potential of humans at work. I'm Linda Stacy, and I'm a corporate sellout turned corporate innovator who thinks that working in corporate America doesn't have to suck. I have to admit that it often does. By some statistics, up to 80% of the workforce are really dissatisfied in the workplace. And what's paradoxical about this is that so many human beings are expecting work to create the meaning, the purpose, the foundation for who they are, their identity in the world and in their life. And now with the pandemic and the Great Resignation, all of this has forced more people to take a look at the quality of life inside of work and outside of work, and also to really understand what culture really means for people inside of organization. Work Dope looks to identify and understand and have conversations around these issues. I always want to say that I think that business is really cool. I think that building things, that solving real world problems and creating, these are all fundamental to the best aspects, the best parts of the human experience. This is how we embrace human potential. And it's my belief that everyone in the organization can be working towards realizing more human potential. A couple of things about this particular recording. These are actually tracks that were taken from a Lead Myself First audio coaching program that I made last year. Again, the name of the program was Lead Myself First. All of this is the same thing, part and parcel to everything I talk about with relation to Work Dope and self-leadership, just some slight tweaks to language around this. If you want to have a better, more empowered, freer experience of the workplace, that's what all of this content is about. Key pieces here for mindset and approach to having a more empowered, freer experience inside the workplace. You will find 3 key tracks here. One of them is around self-awareness, and this really goes back to how and why our biology is set up the way it is, what is happening inside of our body, a very biological level when we're reacting to things, and when we're experiencing other people and realizing what they may or may not be reacting to as well in a workplace. We also talk more specifically about relational awareness and how we can partner to get things done. And further on relational awareness, really about being the boss of you, like that ultimately you being your own boss is the most powerful thing that you can do, the most powerful approach that you can take. All right, enjoy the podcast. Hello there, and welcome to this track on your brain and biology and how it affects self-awareness, how our brain and biology affect why we react the way we do in certain situations, and our reactions usually are tightly linked to our behaviors. So how is it that what's happening in the world and in our interpersonal relationships, is being affected by brain and biology? Humans are very complex. Life gets more and more complex the more that we kind of go through it, and our jobs get more complex, more demanding. And, the combination of our complex biological system in addition to the complex environment, we're always needing to tweak the way that we approach. The idea here is to have some more information, some more knowledge, so that you can affect your experience better, differently. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the brain and the structure of the brain in a concept or a context that was described initially by Paul MacLean, a neuroscientist. And he talks about the triune brain, or the 3-part brain. And the oldest part of our brain, evolutionarily speaking, is the amygdala, or the lizard brain. And this part is responsible for our regulatory systems. So our hormones, if we go outside and it's cold, we might shiver. Just the stuff that kind of keeps shopkeeping, keeps us going in ways that we do not have to think about. It happens on its own, right? Layer 2 is the limbic system, and this part is where our emotions come from. So fear, love, when we're attracted to someone, anything that kind of fills our system with that rush of emotion, the flood, actually blood kind of going to our brain or our heart or something like that. And emotions are really important. They're usually signaling that something is happening. So with anxiety, we're being signaled that maybe there's a threat in our environment. So perhaps we need to protect ourselves in a different way. And then the cortex is the third layer of the brain, and that's the most recently developed, evolutionarily speaking, and we have a lot of it as human beings. So this is where our meaning making comes from. We make connections. This is where an idea, an initial concept, can turn into a feat of science or some fantastic music or art or something like that. It's just the fantastic ways that human beings are able to create as they go through life, as we go through life. So these three layers of the brain, they talk to each other, and this explains reactions and therefore our behavior. So what are some examples of this? We can have an emotional response. So level 2 can impact level 1, the amygdala, the regulatory system. So at work, we might experience anxiety because we just found out that we have to do a presentation tomorrow. So that anxiety triggers the lizard brain to release some adrenaline and cortisol, because anxiety is linked to fear, which is threatening, and we need adrenaline or cortisol in order to fight or to run. That's what the system was originally designed for. But of course, we're not actually using up those stress hormones, and they're causing a problem instead of actually causing a solution. Another example is where level 1 could affect level 2. So it's 11:30 in the morning, you haven't had anything to eat, and you snap at a coworker. So there's this emotional reaction that might not have been as intense or there at all, maybe if you had eaten. And research shows that poor financial decisions are made when people are hungry or in pain. So what's happening to us in a very visceral, biological, fundamental way, our systems are needing something, will affect the way that we respond and make decisions. You can probably relate to this. You've decided that you want to eat better, and you've made this decision for yourself. And then a day will go by, and maybe several hours, and maybe poor planning or something. You don't have a healthy snack available to you, and you get more and more irritable. And then, you throw the initial idea, the good decision for yourself, out the window, and the new decision becomes based in this very biological response that I'm kind of hangry right now, and I need something to eat. So we just grab it. I just want to come back to this idea about stress and our work environments these days. So many of us are in constant stressful situations, and chronic stress is linked with 6 leading causes of death. And it's because we're being bathed in adrenaline and cortisol, and our systems weren't designed for this. There's too much. We're burning ourselves out from the inside. So there's a lot of reasons to pay attention to what's happening here and support ourselves in the ways that we can. We can use this knowledge to approach life differently. So how can you just better meal plan? That's kind of a basic. What are the foods that are going to support you the best? And are you going to have time to prepare? Are you going to grocery shop? Are you going to have something on your person so that you can support yourself physically and not rely on maybe what the fast food industry wants you to rely on? Not that I don't eat fast food when I need to and on occasion, and sometimes from just enjoyment. It's not a judgment call about fast food. It's just about setting yourself up for success. It's also just important to notice emotional reactions, especially. Again, this isn't about suppressing emotional reaction. The emotions are there to signal something, but really just to pause before we respond to whatever is happening. But first, we have to notice that something is happening at a low level. And I'll say for years, I would notice that I was having an emotional reaction, but sometimes I had no idea why I was having that reaction. Like maybe I just had an interaction with someone and it triggered something. And it's sometimes really hard to put your finger on what exactly was triggered. So again, it's important not to react because we might be reacting to the wrong thing, right? Don't suppress the emotion. Just notice it. Notice it because it's a signal of something. That signal is probably important. Also consider how these things are also affecting other people. So we're going through all this dynamic stuff. We don't even know where our reactions are coming from, but so are other people. So if someone's a jerk to you, maybe they just need a snack. Maybe they're sleep deprived. Bottom line is, statistically speaking, it likely has nothing to do with you. If you are in a work situation and it could have something to do with you or your work, then that's a reason to have a discussion. And I talk about that in another recording. But it's not your job to try to make assumptions or mind read and know exactly what's going on for someone else, but just an awareness that they might be having a bad day and that you don't have to take it personally. I think that really helps ease things up a little bit. And I also want to talk a little bit about how things in your environment can be affecting the lizard part of your brain, right? So here's an example. Your desk might be positioned really poorly in an environment. I've had a coworker whose back faced a conference room that has a window. And so there's meetings constantly in that conference room. And so you kind of feel like you're being watched all day. Whether or not people are actually watching you is a different situation. But our bodies are set up when we have a lot of space behind us and that people could be coming up on us. We're actually at alert. So some amount of energy is being drained just because we're not even conscious that we're doing this, but we are trying to kind of be on alert for what could be coming up from behind. If you can reposition your desk, that's awesome. Or if you could just have this knowledge that you might need more breaks or time to move away from that desk, maybe work in a conference room for a period of time. So change the position of the desk or move yourself, something like that. Noise is also something that can drain our energy and therefore create an emotional reaction to something that maybe we wouldn't think. You get off an airplane and you're not just exhausted because it was a long flight and you're out of whack, but you also dealt with that drone, that noise that's actually louder than you think it is from an airplane. Those things can then make us more reactive. I know I'm not usually the most friendly person after long flights and a lot of travel. So you can bring earplugs, you can bring noise canceling headphones, and notice that you probably will feel more refreshed if you do block the sound in the airplane when you're on it. Temperature is huge, especially when you're traveling. Women especially, we can be cold on an airplane, on a train, and in office buildings too, so how can you bring a wrap or something so that you don't have to suffer and shiver? It will exhaust you over time. You will be more tired from being cold all day than not. And when you're going on any type of flight, I always bring snacks. You could be sitting on a tarmac, even if it's a 45-minute flight, you could be stopped there. Or there might be turbulence, so you can't get service or something like that. So I always bring things, again, just think about ways that you can support yourself in these types of physical environments that could be draining. All of this information in this recording is of things that you can know so that you can begin to notice more when you're reacting and kind of pause and maybe react differently or not at all. And where you can actually put support in for yourself, whether it's sleep or food or just better planning in different ways. Experiment. It's all about experimenting. And ultimately, it's all about being really awesome. Hello there. This track is all about relational awareness and partnering. And really, anytime we're trying to get things done, whether at work or at home, we almost always have to work with other people. And the premise here is that you will have a more empowered and more effective working relationship if you take a partnering approach. So some examples here. To set the stage, I'm using the example of functional groups inside of organizations. So I'm going to give some examples as we go, but generally cross-functional teams can run into roadblocks, whether they're working with each other or they're working with the main parts of business like the executives or the strategy team. Often this can stem from groups not fully understanding the full scope of what another group, like they don't understand the role of the other functional group, for example. And often, and this may or may not be a conscious thing, but functional groups can care more about their profession than about the business, or rather, they can lead with the wrong goal as a result of this. So what am I talking about in terms of caring about profession more than the business? I come from the library world, and it's common for people with this background to care a lot about copyright and the legal use of information, which is super legitimate. But when you're going in and trying to provide resources that are going to support the business, information, data, and other things, you're really leading with your expertise around what you know about the data source. And the conversation about copyright and legal use really is more of a, and by the way, we need to be sure that we're following the rules of information. It's not necessarily what we're leading with when we're leading that conversation. IT can be very concerned about security, which is totally legitimate, but are they leading with security? Is every conversation leading with the lens of security? It might be something that's happening for you internally, but it's not necessarily what you're going to lead with from a business perspective. You're going to talk to executives about the business staying, your job is to keep everything running, right? And security is one of the issues around that. And legal is very concerned about contractual issues, as they should be, but all of it is in order to keep business going in the ways that we need to, according to our laws and regulations and everything else. And really, all business is about two things. Every business, no matter what it is, it's about acquiring customers and about keeping customers. No matter the goods or services, those are the goals of business. And whoever you are and whatever role you serve in an organization, you should know how your role lines up to one of those two things, whether it's acquiring or keeping business. And you might be a few layers away. You might be supporting someone who's more fully supporting the good or service or the upkeep or something, but know what that is. And that's where your mindset can come from as you're working to partner. Again, this is all about creating more satisfaction for yourself in the long run. An example quickly here. I worked with a gentleman from another cross-functional team a few years ago, and a team had sent requests to my team and to his team, and clearly they were in a hurry. And this coworker was complaining about the fact that they're always in a hurry, right? Well, it's like we're all on the same team here. Everyone in this organization is in a hurry because that's the way the business was set up. And our customers, our clients, usually are in very high demand, quick turnaround situations. It's like we're all on the same team. We're all in a high demand situation. Now, if the real complaint was maybe exposing the fact that more resources were needed, maybe more people, maybe newer, different processes, that's something different. But really, let's understand where the complaint is coming from. If we need more resources, let's go after getting more resources and not complain about how our business operates. Underneath, though, I think sometimes what can be happening with these cross-functional groups is this undertone of they don't understand what this requires of us or me. They don't understand how complex this is. How come they can't see how much we do to support them? And this all links to a fundamental desire to be seen, to have others know our value, and to be validated. And sometimes requests feel like the opposite of this when they think that we can do something in very short periods of time and it just takes longer. And really, that's okay. Part of our role is to educate and to just give some context around what's involved and how much time it might take to turn something around, to get them what they need, always leading with the fact that you are there to support the business in the end. If you're not feeling seen or you feel like your role is not being seen, this is time when you have to start seeing others in their roles. It's the only way to start, really. If you expect anything from another, you must first demand it of yourself. And anytime there's a complaint, it's probably masking a hidden desire maybe to be seen. But the best starting point is to see others and to fully understand their roles, their pressures, what their pain points are. Listen to them. Ask them what they're frustrated by. Maybe you have some common pain points. This is a great way to build rapport, and having rapport with people helps you get things done with them. No matter who you are, no matter who you're working with, try to understand the other person's role. Try to understand the role of your customer, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer. What is your boss experiencing? What is it like to be your boss? What is it like to be your coworker? What is it like to work with you? What is it like to be the owner or the executive and the pressure to keep payroll going? What is it like to be your direct report? And you don't have to give this a ton of time. It's just acknowledging that what's happening for them is likely something that's different happening from you. But over time, people will begin to pick up on the fact that you are noticing them. And in response, they will notice you too. You have got to start from yourself and just doing this yourself. You might also pick up on a lack of respect sometimes. Sometimes it feels like we're being treated like the help. And the best thing that you can do there is to act as professionally and respectfully as you would like to be treated. It's really the only avenue that you can take. If you are in a very toxic toxic environment, that's a different story. And that's not what I'm talking about here. A lot of times we're picking up on something and it might have nothing to do with you. We talked about in another recording how someone might have had a really bad morning. They might not have had enough sleep. They might be in pain. They might need a meal, and it might have nothing to do with you. No matter what, when you're working with other people, when you're partnering, trying to get good work done so that your company can continue to serve its customers and gain new customers so that you can continue to have a paycheck. Always be considering what is in it for the other person. People, no matter who we are, myself included, we are tuned into WIIFM, what's in it for me. So if you can understand where others are coming from, you are going to up level. You are going to have a more empowered experience of work. You're going to get more done. You're going to be seen. You're going to be recognized. You're going to be validated. Always check in with people, ask them where they're starting from, and create a level playing field from the beginning. All of this is about bringing the best of our gifts and talents to the organization so that the organization can gain and serve more customers. And finally, I have to say, if you kind of get this already, and maybe you're mentoring someone, you're helping them along understand this, this isn't about lecturing to them. It's more about asking them questions to help them explore what else could be going on. So if someone is in a very complainy mood about what's happening at work or in their environment, listen, get them to fully express. They need to be validated and seen in that moment too. And then one of the best things you can do is share examples of something that you had, a similar situation from maybe earlier in your career and what you learned along the way. It's just like parents with kids. Until we have our own kids, we don't really get what it is to be a parent. But we can do our best to maybe step into someone else's shoes and be there as an example and a mentor. Overall, be awesome, partner, get great work done. I wish you the best. Well, hello there. This entire CD audio coaching program is called Lead Myself First. And the premise really is that you and I and everyone will be freer if and when we take more ownership, more responsibility over everything that's going on in our lives. We'll actually get more of what we want for ourselves when we lead ourselves through one of three broad areas, whether it's self-management and the productivity systems I talk about, or self-awareness, what we know about our biology and our nurture and nature, and also how well we can partner with others in anything we're trying to get done. What I have found, though, in work especially, is that there tends to be an over-reliance on what the boss is supposed to do and the level to which we expect them to validate us. Brené Brown says in more than one of her books that the people whose opinions should matter to us should fit on the size of a small Post-it. So these are the people that we really respect and we look to as mentors, people we want to emulate. And those might not be our bosses. There might be part of the boss that we want to emulate, but certainly not everything. The boss's job really is to keep things moving forward, to try to get the most out of everyone. But again, how much can we expect from a boss to be able to read everyone on a team? Gallup says people quit bosses, but I just like us to think about this a little bit. I have a colleague on LinkedIn, and I read a post that he put up a couple of months ago, and he is a person who teaches leaders to be better leaders. And it was a great post, a great perspective. And he was sharing how he reads people and that for his dominant direct reports, he shares ownership with them. And with his more introverted direct reports, he might send a Slack message instead of calling them unexpectedly. And with his really engaged, more diligent direct reports, he might actually go over and have face-to-face, more involved conversation with them. He's very aware. He's very good at reading people, but not all bosses are. And to think that any of us can really get into the minds of everyone that we work and interact with, it's a little bit of a stretch. We're all doing the best that we can. You know, some bosses never get the opportunity to get leadership training. They might be put in a role without any guidance, any support, any grooming whatsoever. I've also known people who have had the opportunity for leadership training and they don't take it. They have the opportunity for executive coaching and they don't take it. They don't see it as necessary. Some awareness might be lacking here. In my opinion, any of us can and should always be open to growth. Of course, time can be an element too. but maybe they believe they're doing a fine job. So there's lots of reasons why leaders might not be getting awesome perspective like this LinkedIn colleague of mine did. But I would suggest that, what can you know about yourself so that you can get what you need in order to best take ownership and leadership over the work product that you're producing, just have a better experience and better interactions. I'm an introvert. So what can I know about that to help me interact with others and get work done? I can let my coworkers know that I might not be chatty until a little bit later in the morning. If they take that personally, that's unfortunate. I might tell them hopefully that they wouldn't, but ultimately, they'll notice that I'm much warmer and more interested in chatting later in the day. And they also usually over time get that I respect whatever their stuff is, like when they want to be left alone or something like that. So know yourself, communicate some things to your coworkers to the extent that you're willing to. If you maybe need more guidance on your priorities, maybe you're not getting actual guidance from your boss, ask for it. Ask for one-on-ones every week or every other week, or list out your priorities and send them along to your boss or whoever's above you and list them and say, this is what I'm working on. Maybe this is the order that I'm working on. This is the timeline that I'm expecting. You can set your own agenda, especially if you're not getting a lot of guidance. It probably means that they trust you to take care of your work. But if you want a little input, ask for it. You might not want interruptions. How can you lead yourself in terms of creating the physical external environment that you want to be in? If you are in an office, you could hold up your hand as someone approaches. Maybe they're just coming up to think that you're willing to talk at any moment. Say, hey, I just need a couple minutes, or let me ping you when I'm done with what I'm working. It'd probably be about 30 minutes. Or maybe, put something on my calendar. We can talk about it later today. You're all there to get work done and you want to support, but you don't need to be interrupted every minute. Again, you're coming from the partnering premise that your goal and their goals are ultimately kind of the same with the business. If you are going to fake it, like if I'm going to fake it and say that I can interact with people before 10 o'clock, well, I also have to own that. I have to lead myself and not resent people for when they want to interact with me. Those of you who are introverts will probably get what I'm talking about. Again, leaders might not have had any training. They might be okay, but they should not be responsible for all of your emotional validation needs. We need to be able to find ways to self-validate. We need to respect ourselves. We need to show respect to others. If it feels like you're not being respected, again, all that you can do is act with the most professionalism and the most respect. If someone, takes your breath away because of the way they talk to you, if you're working in a toxic environment, that's a little bit different. To the extent that you can begin to notice when this happens, try not to react right away. Or think about what you might want to do a little bit later. Take a breath, take a walk. Again, this is all about leading yourself first. I believe that we can be the best bosses of ourselves, that I am the best boss of me, and that I get the most of what I want from life when I take things on as well as I can and I learn from others. All of this, whether we are bosses or whether we're just leading ourselves, it's a lifelong journey, lifelong experience towards growth. And it's a big responsibility to be a leader of others. So I recommend that you do what you can to expand your learning and your awareness of those that you're working with. All of this absolutely contributes to a more free, a more joyful, a more enriching experience of life, even when it gets tough. All of these tools help us to play the game of life better, to engage better, to have a more full, robust, treating life as though it's a well-balanced meal and less empty. So how can you have full engagement and lead yourself first? I wish you the best at awesome. There you have it. Episode 4 is in the books. If you have stories, comments, or questions, please send them my way. I'd love to know what's hitting and what's not. You can email me at linda@workdopepod.com. That's linda@work, W-O-R-K, dope, D-O-P-E, pod, P-O-D.com. Until next time, this is Linda Stacy signing off for Work Dope. Have a great week. Bye-bye.